Guys, I got a quick video for you today where I'm going to metalwork this Mercedes quarter panel back into place. It got pushed in by about 3 inches, and I'm going to use a laser to figure out how far it has to come back out. And to fix this panel, I'm going to use my homemade spotter tool to do all of the repairs. This quarter panel got folded under quite nicely. It should be probably right around here. Looking at the good side, we shouldn't even be able to see the tire or the wheel at all from this angle, but we see a good amount of it right here because let's see, this quarter should be right at about this bumper level, and it's supposed to kind of come right over here. Door got clipped right in this corner just a little bit, but that shouldn't be too difficult to repair. The quarter panel skin took a dive along with the wheelhouse, and hopefully all this metal comes out together without separating as I'm making the pull. The very first thing I always do before I start any repair is I make a game plan, and that's important because I don't want to just jump in there and wing it. I try to cover all of my bases as to how it is that I'm going to attack my repair, including how it is that I'm going to measure things out, how I'm going to make my pull by using what tools. These are going to be the main tools I'll be using today. Obviously, we're going to be using the spotter with some keys attached to it that will be pulled by the claw. Then we got this archway pulling clamp. We're going to be pulling on it by using this heavy-duty ratcheting strap, a measuring tape, some hammers, and this time around I'm going to show you how to use a laser to figure out how far out that quarter panel has to come out. The two most common lasers on the market normally come in 2 colors, red and green. Here's another laser that I used for a while, and there's nothing wrong with it. It works just fine. However, if I'm working outside, especially if it's a nice sunny day such as it is today, it is a bit harder for me to see a laser beam that comes out of this cheaper laser, and this more of a professional type laser works out much better. Let me show you the difference. Right now I have both of these lasers set up in a hallway of my house, and we don't really have any direct sunlight, but you can clearly see both of the beams, and you do see the green beam much better. It is much brighter. Also, a lot of these smaller, cheaper lasers will only project the beam out one way, while more of a professional grade lasers will disperse the beam 360 degrees around. You don't always need this function, but when you do, this tool becomes indispensable. First thing we gotta do is we have to level out the car side to side, and once again, I'll be using the laser to do just that. My driveway is not level, and I bet you anything, yours is not level either. I got this laser set up on a camera tripod, and this thing actually works out real good because I can crank this thing up and down as I need to. This way I can get this laser into position exactly where I need it to be. As a point of reference for leveling, I'm gonna use these corners of the quarter panel. I don't want to scratch the clear coat with the measuring tape, so I'll put some masking tape right over these areas. I got the laser beam hitting somewhere above this point, so let's go ahead and take a measurement. So if I'm measuring directly from that corner, the measurement falls right on 25 to 26 millimeter mark, or right at 1 inch. On the opposite side of the car, our measurement is right at 50 millimeters, or just shy of 2 inches. This means that this side of the car is about 1 inch lower than the other side. That means that this side has to come up 1 inch, so that way our measurements would be the same on both sides. I would avoid using a hydraulic jack for leveling purposes and instead use a screw type bottle jack like the one I'm using, or a scissor jack. A lot of hydraulic jacks will lose pressure as they sit, and your leveled out car will no longer be leveled. So now with the car leveled out side to side, we have to set up a couple of reference points for our laser beam to pass through. So here, if we follow the damage, it ends right about here. But just to be on the safe side, let's go ahead and move all the way down here to the very edge of this metal panel. And that's where I'm going to mount this magnetic target. Now let's pick another spot more toward the end of the panel. Once again, I pick the area that's not affected by damage. And back here, I'll just use this far corner as a good point of reference because once again, the damage is nowhere near it. I'm just gonna go ahead and set this thing right in here. It's just an easy way for me to gauge the position of this thing in comparison to the quarter panel. At the time of filming, I only had one green magnetic target, so I had to improvise by using this simple magnet for my second target. But the problem is, this thing is just not big enough, because I have to have a direct line of sight between both targets for the laser beam to pass through. So I had to improvise once again by putting a little extension onto the magnet that I made out of a paint stick. And now, once I figured out two good points of reference on a damaged side, I can transfer my targets over to the same areas on an undamaged side. The key here is the precision placement of these targets. Also note as to how I use the edges of the panel as a guide for target placement. Never mind the length of the grass, because this is not what this video is about. I've got this laser situated on the ground in such a way where the laser beam runs parallel to the car and lands right on the very edge of this horizontal line. Now I'll just mark the spot where the laser is passing through on our second target. And at this point, I'm almost ready to set up my grid. For that, I'm going to run some masking tape over the wheel arch. I started my tape right at the very corner of the quarter panel, and that's going to be my 0 point. Next, I'm going to put down a mark at 3-inch increments, starting at a 0 point, and run it all the way out to the end of masking tape. With the grid laid out, now I can take some measurements, once again starting at a 0 point mark. It's a bit hard to see, but the beam is landing right on 1 inch or 25mm mark, so I'll go ahead and write that value down. At the next mark down the grid, the beam lands right on a 20mm mark, so once again I'll write the value down, and I'll repeat the process for every mark all the way down the grid. And moving back to the damaged side, I put my tape down again, measured out my 0 point, and marked out my 3-inch increments all the way down the arch. And then all of the values that I wrote down on a good side also got transferred to the damaged side. Now let's bring back our front and back targets. Guys, now comes the tricky part. I'm gonna have to take my time on this one, but I'm gonna have to set that laser up once again to mimic the other side, meaning the beam has to pass through both gauges exact the same way down to a millimeter as what I did on the good side. This may take 1 minute or it may take as much as 5 minutes, but this part is really important. It's critical because I'm setting up a baseline and all of my measurements are going to be running off of it. Let's take a look. First off, right there, just clipping that horizontal line. And then here is going to be hard to see because we got a lot of glare coming off of my garage door. This might be a little hard for you guys to see, but I'll do my best to show you where the beam is. So right here, it's actually passing right through about 59 to a 60mm mark. And we only should be at 25. So we got about 35mm difference right here, which is about 1.5 inches or so. And it's only gonna get worse the farther in we go. And I think this point is gonna be the worst. Well, enough talking. Let's go ahead and pull this panel. You can use a tree or a pole, but in my case, I'm anchoring the strap to the wheel of my truck. Next, I slip a quarter panel pulling clamp into the wheel well, and now I'm off to the races. Guys, when you're making the pool, you don't want to start from the center, from the worst part. You actually want to start from the outside in, coming in either from one side or the other. The area with the heaviest damage gets pulled out last. This way, as you're working your way from the outside in, you're keeping the metal stretch down to the minimum. Now moving the clamp a little more to the center and give it another good pull. That actually popped out a little quicker than I thought it would. I wasn't even giving it all that much of attention, but man, this metal just came right out. And basically this section is out all the way, so I don't need to do any more work here, but I do have to work this area some more. I'm going to make another pull, and while under tension, I will do some stress relieving with a rubber mallet. And you can actually see the panel move while the pressure is being relieved. So you no longer see the top of the tire. This archway is really coming back out. As I checked the progress against the laser, the 0 point location got pulled out to where it's supposed to be. And as I move back along the archway, I can see that this area still needs to be pulled out by about 3mm. And once I applied a bit more tension to the panel, I did some more stress relieving with a hammer from the inside of the wheel well. And after some more fine-tuning, I got this leading edge of the quarter panel out to just about where it's supposed to be. I got everything pulled out about 1mm under, because you want to leave just a little bit of room for the body filler. Take the note of the lip of the quarter panel that was originally tucked under. I had to bend it out just so I can get my quarter panel puller in there. And once I'll get done with all of the metalwork, that lip will get rolled right back. We do have some damage on this door, and you can actually see if you follow the contour. This is an easy fix. I don't want to disturb the paint on the inside of the door, so instead of using a regular hammer, I'm going to use a rubber mallet, and I will literally just tap that out. And it looks right. But after I brought up that leading edge of the door, now I can see that the leading edge of this quarter panel is in probably by about 1/4 of an inch, or I'd say about 6 or 7 millimeters. Looking from the inside of the door jamb, you can really see how that body line got crushed in. So to raise the edge of that panel right by the door, as well as metal working the rest of the quarter panel, I'm going to use my homemade spotter tool. I built this thing some time ago out of 3 microwave transformers, some cable, and some basic electronics. So if you guys want to see how I did it, as well as maybe even building yourself one of those, go ahead and check out my very detailed video that I will leave a link to at the end of this video. With the use of an orbital sander, I'm going to remove all of the paint and go down to the bare metal so that the key-shaped pulling tabs could be attached. Also, whenever I'm using a spotter on a vehicle or doing any kind of welding, you want to make sure that your battery is unplugged, or in my case, I'm going to use this surge protector to keep any kind of spikes out of the car's electrical system. Next, I attach a grounding clamp, and now I can zap a bunch of these tabs onto the edge of the panel that I'm trying to raise. Now to unify all these tabs as one, I'll pass a steel rod through them, and then the pulling claw gets attached to the rod. I'm using the same heavy-duty tie down to pull on the claw. And once again, with all of the metal under tension, I'm gonna go ahead and relieve some of the pressure inside of the door jamb with a rubber mallet. Once I close the door, I can really gauge my progress. And I gotta say, everything is looking great. These pulling tabs come off so easy. All you gotta do is just give them a quick twist and they pop right off. And just like that, with one quick pull, this edge of the panel is right back to where it's supposed to be. Alright, moving on to the main area of the quarter panel. Let's get this thing stripped to the bare metal. If you look at the metal in some of these areas, you'll see these darker spots, and that's paint and sealer down in the lower areas that I haven't gotten down to just yet. But if you look in this area, you'll see these more of a silver spots. This is zinc coating. So as I will work this area with a spotter, for example, or if I had to weld something to this area, I would not get a good contact or penetration through zinc. Therefore, all of it would have to get sanded off until no more zinc coating remains. Alright, so we have this body line over the wheel well, and it's not really pronounced. It's still kind of partially crushed in. So first we need to figure out exactly where it's supposed to be. And for that, we're going to go back to our good side. For this step, I'm going to use a marker gauge that I made a few videos back. I'll set the tip of the pencil at the crown of the body line, and now the gauge is set to transfer the reading onto the damaged side. And now with the line drawn out, I can raise the body line back up once again with the use of the key tabs. Right away you can see how that body line got tightened up. And while there is still tension on the panel, I'll use the spotter to raise some of the low areas that are just above the body line. And I just keep working the entire duration of the line that I drew to get that nice crisp body line back up. Relieve some more tension with a hammer, raise some more lows with a spotter, check the progress. Also, instead of twisting off the pulling tabs one by one, you can also pop them all off at once. And by this point, the panel is really starting to take its original shape. Alright, the body line is back to where it's supposed to be, and the last step would be to fine-tune the area right above it. These sparks indicate that I did not have a good contact between the tip of the puller and the panel, which is probably caused by the zinc that I have failed to remove off the panel completely. Once all the spotter work is done, I usually go over some areas with a small hammer just to even things out if I have any high spots anywhere. And if I really want to zoom in on some of those really small minute high spots, I would normally use a small stubby screwdriver, so that way I'm only affecting a really small area that I'm trying to bring back down. Guys, to be honest, not that long ago, I hated doing metalwork. And once I built a spotter tool, doing metalwork actually became my favorite part of the whole process. I truly enjoy it because now I can get things done much easier and faster. I did this quarter panel repair for a friend of mine who runs a body shop, and sometimes when they get busy, they will farm out jobs such as this one out to me. Normally I would just metalwork the panel, and they're the ones that will finish up the body filler work and paint. A few days later, I stopped by my buddy's place and the car was completely done, and I took some quick footage so you guys can see what the final product looks like. So what do you guys think about the way I go about doing these types of repairs? I would really like to hear your thoughts. Would you do things differently? Would you use some different tools? And this is all I got for this video, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next one here real soon.